With Who Else But Me having been out for over a month already, I wanted to double back and start doing some, not lyric breakdowns necessarily, but just song breakdowns, more about the concepts and ideas that brought the songs to life. So for this first one, I wanted to start with Bleeding Seeds. And Bleeding Seeds is the first track of the album, and it's also the first song that I made for the album. A year ago, when I started working on the album and, theorizing and just overall planning what I wanted this next project to be, that song was already in existence. Bleeding Seeds focuses on telling the story of when life kind of changed, like my first real glimpse into the inevitability of certain things in adulthood. The story follows me coming home with my mom and my siblings and us noticing things weren't looking normal at my grandfather's house. Lights always on in the evening time. He might come over, whatever it may be. He hadn't come over for a bit. Lights were off. Stuff started looking weird. And we decided to stop over there and check on him. We couldn't get an answer. I had to break in through the back kitchen door at the time. And without going into great detail, there were things that we saw. He was fine. Not fine, but he was alive. There were things that I saw in that moment that kind of resonated with me and still continues to weigh on my mind. But after that first verse, which kind of tells how we stumbled upon that, things transitioned to the second verse, which is the conversations that happened afterwards. For the second verse, that starts getting into events at the hospital, events at my job at the time. When he was in the hospital and he was being treated and everything, visiting hours, I can't remember exactly what the visiting hours were, but I knew that I wouldn't get off of work in time to see him. I wanted to get off work early, go see him, head home. My boss at the time didn't let me get out of work early, which again, it is what it is, can't change the past. But in hindsight, I realized I could have just left. But my grandfather always told me to, protect my job. So I didn't just walk off my job to go see him at the hospital. I waited. And unfortunately for me, backing up, I did see him, a couple days prior to that. But unfortunately for me, that last day that I was intending to go see him, he ended up passing away like really early in the morning, like super early in the morning the next day. So I held a grudge for that with my boss, with that job, and did everything I could to try to get fired, but it just never worked. I just couldn't get fired from that job. So following that, not following it, but before that, I had a conversation with my grandfather, and, he was essentially putting a lot of weight on my shoulders. I wasn't aware at the time, but I kind of understood it as I grew. He had asked me to make sure my mom and my sisters graduate high school and college, because he was very big on, being educated. That was something that was really important to him because he had to leave school in order to help his family. So I did that. I dedicated a good portion of my life to, sticking around, make sure my mom got the help she needed, make sure my sisters got the help they needed. Again, I did not have to, but telling a 17-year-old that right before you die, it kind of put the weight on me of, that's a deathbed promise. I can't really break that because then I got to live with that after. I've had the conversation with my parents since then about that not really, about that not really being fair to me, but it is what it is. So overall, that song just touched on every one of those moments and feelings that I had from that situation, like stemming from us finding him in the house to his passing that December. It was just, I felt like that was the best way to start an album like this, an album where I was going to be reflecting on me and things that have happened in my life and issues that I've had and, things that I've been trying to overcome, and just being honest and reflective. I felt like it was a good place to start because that was, essentially my first step into adulthood. That was after graduation. That was after I had turned 18. It was, just a new step in life. Now for the title, Bleeding Seeds, I have had a very big connection to nature. I want to say my whole life, but artistically speaking, for albums, since more apparent since Bloom, so maybe 2020. And I've tried to incorporate that into various aspects of songs and albums. And Bleeding Seeds was like the seeds planted in life and the pain that comes from those planted seeds, the pain that comes from and the injuries that come from various seeds that are planted within us, seeds that we plant ourselves into our lives, into the people around us. And just kind of building off the theme of that, I had another name. I can't remember what the original name for the song was. It's on my hard drive, but Bleeding Seeds stuck because it was like, hey, this album has brought me to places mentally and spiritually that I hadn't been able to reach. And as I was writing that song specifically, it was like, okay, this is a lot of pain that I'm working through as I'm writing this. And one thing that I'm not sure if I made it very clear, but I know I used it in the cover for Fruits of My Labor, is the pomegranate. That fruit to me is incredibly symbolic because, it loosely resembles a heart. It's a fruit that if you stab it, it bleeds. The juice of the pomegranate resembles blood. So I felt like it was a proper representation, a proper artistic representation of how I was feeling, the fruits of my labor, and then following up an album called Fruits of My Labor with a song from the next album titled Bleeding Seeds just made sense to me. So that's just a not so quick breakdown and background of what was going through my mind as I was working on the first track of the album, Bleeding Seeds.